The old mansion stood on a hill overlooking the town, a grim silhouette against the stormy sky. It had stood there for centuries, a monument to a dark and forgotten past. Locals whispered tales of tragedy and horror. They said the mansion was haunted. The house was shrouded in shadow and mist. Its windows, like empty eyes, stared out blindly. The wind howled through the trees, twisting their branches into menacing shapes. A sense of dread hung in the air, thick and suffocating. This place was not meant for the living. It was a place where fear took root and blossomed into madness. One night, a lone figure dared to approach the mansion. Drawn by curiosity and a morbid fascination, he stepped across the threshold into the unknown. He had heard the stories, of course, but he dismissed them as mere superstition. The door creaked open as if inviting him inside. The air within was heavy and cold. It smelled of decay and dust. The faint glow of the moon illuminated the grand foyer. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the silence was deafening. He took a hesitant step forward, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, his every move scrutinized by unseen eyes. As he ventured deeper into the mansion, the silence was broken by whispers. Soft, indistinct murmurs that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. He paused, listening intently, his heart pounding in his chest. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a ghostly chorus. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a symphony of sorrow, anger, and despair. He felt a cold hand on his shoulder and spun around, his breath catching in his throat. But there was nothing there. He was alone, yet he felt surrounded, trapped in a nightmare of sound. He continued his exploration, each room more unsettling than the last. Furniture lay draped in dust-covered sheets, frozen in time. Paint peeled from the walls like shedding skin. In the grand ballroom he felt a presence. It was cold and hostile, a suffocating weight on his chest. He could hear the faint strains of music, a waltz that seemed to drift from another era. He turned to leave, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own morbid curiosity. The unseen guest had made itself known. Section 5. A glimmer in the dark. Panic surged through him as he fumbled for the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. He was trapped. Then a glimmer of light caught his eye. A faint glow emanated from a room at the end of the hallway. With renewed determination, he ran towards the light. He threw open the door and found himself in a small, dusty study. A single candle flickered on a desk, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. On the desk lay a leather-bound journal. Its pages were filled with elegant handwriting. He reached out, his fingers trembling slightly, and opened the journal. Section 6. The Portrait's Gaze. The journal belonged to a woman named Amelia. She wrote of her life in the mansion, of strange occurrences, and of a growing sense of dread. She described a portrait of her late husband that seemed to watch her every move. He searched the room and found the portrait above the fireplace. The man in the painting was handsome, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to follow him around the room. He felt a chill run down his spine as he read Amelia's final entry. "The eyes," she wrote, "they're alive." The journal slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor with a soft thud. Section 7. The Screaming Portrait. Suddenly the candle flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. He cried out in alarm as a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house, a scream filled with terror and despair. He stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He groped his way through the darkness, desperate to escape the nightmare. As he ran, he could hear the scream echoing behind him, growing louder, closer. He burst out of the study and into the hallway, the scream still ringing in his ears. He glanced back and saw the portrait, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. The man in the painting was screaming. Section 8. Escape from the nightmare. He didn't hesitate. He ran, his lungs burning, his legs screaming for mercy. He raced through the darkened corridors, the screams of the portrait chasing him. Each room was a blur as he desperately searched for an exit, a way out of the madness. Finally, he saw the front door, a beacon of hope in the darkness. He lunged for it, throwing all his weight against the heavy wood. It creaked open, and he tumbled out into the cool night air. He lay there on the steps, gasping for breath, his body trembling. The screams from within the mansion had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. He was safe for now. Section 9. Return to the shadows. He slowly got to his feet and looked back at the mansion. It loomed above him, a dark and menacing presence. The windows were once again empty eyes, staring out at the world. He knew he would never forget the horrors he had witnessed within those walls. As he turned to leave, he thought he saw a figure in one of the windows, a shadowy silhouette that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. He couldn't be sure, but he could swear he saw the faint glimmer of eyes watching him. He didn't look back. He walked away from the mansion and never returned. The haunted house claimed another victim that night, not of flesh and blood, but of sanity and peace of mind.